tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do and
Sure,
why you like what you do.
sure. I'm somebody who I have a lot of friends who growing up had convictions based on cannabis related issues. And now they finally have that path where they can start their own business and say, listen, I went through a lot growing up, but I'm ready to right now become a business person. I want to help grow my community. And that's really where my role comes in. And I love doing it. Working with small businesses has always been my favorite thing to do since I was in college. And this has really been one of the few times where I can say, this is just an area I love to work in. And I can't say enough about it.
Break it down for me. What happened with what this action that this federal judge took in layman's terms?
Sure. So effectively, the most recent decision issued by Judge Sharp out of the United States Northern District for New York effectively means that any recreational retail licenses for cannabis that are being sold in the 5 areas, which the Finger Lakes being one of them, are now prohibited from issuing licenses in those specific 5 areas. The reason for that is the judge is using the Dormant Commerce Clause, which effectively states that you're not allowed to discriminate against interstate commerce, saying that, well, since this is a company that is based out of Michigan or the majority shareholder is based out of Michigan, that they can't apply for this program, which was for the justice involved individuals to obtain that first bite at those recreational retail licenses.
How did it come to be that the judge did this?
Yeah, so effectively the company, I believe it's Varsity Inc. or some variation of that, applied for the recreational retail cannabis licenses. That was part of the justice involved program issued early in, I believe it was August through September. So what effectively happened was that person who applied for the license was denied because they were an out-of-state resident. The goal with the program was to target and benefit in-state residents if possible. This person is now challenging that, saying it's not allowed. The reason for that is they're saying we're discriminating against out-of-state commerce and we're not supposed to do that, meaning that this person's license should, in theory, be granted. That's that person's position.
What's your position?
My position right now is that I think it's really a true toss-up. We're going to need to see how this develops a little bit. We're going to need to see testimony given on both sides, as well as legal arguments. I think both sides do have their pros and cons. I think the big pro is the Dormant Commerce Clause is very strong. That's one of the things that the judge leaned on as far as issuing that decision. What I think the state has a strong opinion on, or strong facts, is basically saying, we're doing our best to be able to help our residents and people that want to grow business in the state of New York that are from New York, which they do have some leverage there. So it's really just going to be a matter of seeing what testimony is given, what legal arguments are given, and where does the judge fall.
Couldn't they move operations here and then that would be acceptable? Or
in theory, right, the person who's the majority shareholder could say, okay, I'm going to pick up and change my residency to New York, which in theory could defeat a lot of the allegations and accusations that are being put forth. But I think a lot of this for a lot of people is really, what is the legal argument? Is this actually legal? Because now the door is opened up where this is right now only affecting about 5 regions of New York State. If these lawsuits continue to be filed, this could affect almost every region of New York State. And we could see a very large holdup in the actual retail cannabis world being unveiled in New York State.
talk about that holdup that we could be seeing and why. Is this really going to hold up the sale from happening legally in New York State?
I think it'll definitely slow it down. The reason being is now you have all of these companies that have applied for licenses that may in theory be ready to start operations. And now they're saying, well, we can't get our licenses, so how can we start selling the product? So I think that's really where you're going to see a lot of the issues and you're going to really begin to see a bottleneck happen.
And what about the people who already have their licenses? How's that going to affect them?
My understanding is the people who have already been issued and have their licenses, they should be able to proceed as they were, as if it didn't happen for them. This really only affects the people who put an application in who are wondering, hey, is a decision going to be made? As far as the people who already have their licenses, they'll remain mostly unaffected.
What's the timeline in New York for when dispensaries are going to be able to open?
I think right now, I know that OCM has come forth and say they want to begin by the end of the year. Again, it's still a little bit too early to tell if that's going to happen or not, but I think this is definitely going to create a new set of problems for OCM and New York State.
So what is your role in all of this as an attorney? Like, how are you involved with this whole thing?
Yeah, so my role is to help my clients who are either applying for the recreational retail licenses, or just advising generally what regulations you have to follow in order to begin selling the product, what are your corporate requirements, things of that nature.
What is the next step? Like, what are we waiting to see happen here?
Yeah, so the injunction that was issued by the judge puts a temporary stop to it, meaning that this is something where until further testimony or hearing has been given, this is going to stay in effect. So this in theory could be going on for another 1 to 6 months or throughout the end of the action. What I think you may see is the judge gives somewhat of a carve out, meaning that they can say, okay, on a temporary basis, we're going to make sure that if this person is correct, say their legal arguments are held up, they can maybe potentially allocate one license for that person. That way they can begin the rollout for all of the other people who are applied and still waiting in the pipeline.
So this person from Michigan has to come first?
Not necessarily. So this person from Michigan has the right to be heard, meaning that they're going to be able to put forth more evidence, put on their legal arguments and their testimony. And the judge is going to make a decision from there saying, okay, we're going to continue with this injunction. Everything's put to a halt, or maybe some sort of resolution can be reached between counsel for the United States government, for Northern District of New York, and potentially for the company's attorney.
So in the meantime, people who want to get their licenses, they can't apply right now. Their applications aren't even being considered.
Well, the initial application window, I believe, ran from only August to September of 2022. So the application window is currently closed for the justice involved only applicants.
Okay. But then where are we now?
Right now, we're in a bit of a wait and see period, meaning that the licenses in other regions have been issued to some extent, but there's still a lot of licenses that haven't. And for those 5 regions, which were outlined in the judge's decision, they're basically locked from issuing any more licenses in that region. So if you said, I want to set it up in the Finger Lakes, they're saying no. If you're saying, I want to set it up in the Capital District, they may say yes.
Legally, it's like a conundrum.
Right. And frankly, it's, I think this is something that OCM should have been aware that these are challenges that were going to be open whenever you're giving a benefit to in-state residents. You always open yourselves up to legal challenges. However, in a situation like this, I think that the legal arguments that are being made do have some level of validity, but New York State and OCM also has a separate set of arguments, which I think are also just as valid.
Wonderful. And so I think you said the next step is basically we're just waiting to see the technical next step is what?
So the technical next step is this injunction is stayed pending a further resolution. So meaning that they can call a hearing, the judge can take additional written arguments. The judge has pretty significant discretion as to how to handle this. So
Okay.
that's where a lot of the toss-ups come in.
Okay, perfect. You did such a great job. Thank you so much.
No problem.
So tomorrow morning, go to fingerlakes1.com
Okay,
and at 9 a.m. is when our
Okay.
show starts. Tell all your friends about it, please. so they
okay,
can see you
will
on
do.
there.
I love doing it.
And then we'll be on there. You can see it on Facebook. You can share it on Facebook and
Great,
do your story.
will do. Thank you so much. And if you ever need anything else moving forward, please don't hesitate to reach out. I love working with you guys on this stuff. So
And we love working with you. So we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
no problem. Have a nice day.
Have a great day. Bye.